In the instant of the avalanche, Julian pushed me away. He turned and wrapped his arms tightly around Sadie Miller. 3 hours later, when I, Alara Vance, miraculously escaped with my life and made a single phone call, the two of them, warming themselves by a fire in a luxury hotel, would find their world crumbling around them. When the avalanche hit, there were none of the long, drawn-out warnings you see in movies. There was only a deafening crack, as if the entire mountain was splitting open from within. I had just turned my head when Julian's hand shoved my shoulder. The force was immense, sending me stumbling sideways. My safety rope snagged on a shard of ice, and the buckle snapped open with a sharp click. I shouted Julian's name. He heard me. I saw him glance back at me, but in the next second, Sadie screamed and threw herself at him. Without a moment's hesitation, he turned and pulled her into his arms, shielding her with his body from the spray of ice and snow. As I tumbled into a deep snow-filled ravine, the last thing I saw was him dragging Sadie toward the safety of the emergency shelter. Sadie wrapped in my silver thermal blanket, the one I had packed in my gear bag before we set out. She was sobbing hysterically, and Julian, one hand cradling her head and the other gripping the main rope, yelled in a hoarse voice, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." I lay in the snow, half of my body numb from the impact and the biting cold, the taste of iron filling my mouth. Just a few minutes earlier, we had been filming the final shots for our pre-wedding documentary. The Blackwood Peak ski area was a major philanthropic safety project for my foundation this year. Julian had said he wanted to combine our wedding announcement with a public service announcement for mountain rescue. "Alara," he'd said, "our wedding shouldn't just be about us. It should be something meaningful." I believed him. That's why I was personally leading the team up the mountain, planning the route, confirming the rescue points, carrying the authorization documents for the foundation's next quarter in my pack. I never expected Sadie Miller to be on the closed training course. Dressed in a white ski suit, she stood beside Julian like a flower cultivated in the snow. I asked Julian why she was there. He frowned. "Sadie's a photographer. She knows the lighting conditions on the snow. I asked her to come help at the last minute." I looked at Sadie. She lowered her head and smiled faintly. "Alara, don't misunderstand. I just wanted to help Julian get the perfect shots. You're getting married soon, and I wanted to offer my congratulations." She called him Julian, her tone natural and familiar. I didn't expose the lie on the spot. The ski resort staff were there, my foundation's team was there, and Julian's brand team was there. I didn't want a public service shoot to devolve into a private melodrama. I simply took the spare thermal blanket and stuffed it back into my own backpack, reminding everyone that the wind was unstable and no one should stray from the main trail. Sadie nodded with a smile. Half an hour later, she strayed anyway. She said she wanted to capture a shot of the light on a particular snow cornice. Julian followed her. By the time I caught up to them, I heard the first crack of the snowpack. The surface of the snow trembled like thin glass. The lead rescuer, Mark, yelled into the radio, "Everyone, pull back, now!" I rushed over to pull Julian back to the main trail. For a moment, he grabbed my hand, his palm still warm. But then Sadie's foot slipped, and she shrieked, "Julian, I'm scared!" The look in Julian's eyes changed. He let go of my hand and shoved me away. "Get back!" I lost my footing. I was knocked toward the edge of the ravine, my safety line slipped, and my body tumbled downward. The sports camera on my chest hit a rock, and a thin crack split the screen. My first instinct wasn't to cry or curse. It was to reach out and press the save button. That camera, which I had brought to film the rescue documentary, had a shockproof case, automatic audio recording, and a timestamp synced with the ski resort system. Julian didn't know. He only knew I loved to film things, to document, to save every detail. He once teased me, "Alara, do you plan on recording our arguments for evidence?" I had leaned on his shoulder and said, "I'm just afraid one day things won't be clear." He had replied, "With me here, no one would dare let things be unclear with you." Now, the person making things unclear was him. As the wall of snow and ice crashed down, I buried my face in my arm, my other hand fumbling for the ring on my ring finger. It was stuck on my frozen knuckle. I yanked at it twice, tearing the skin. The blood froze almost instantly. I finally pulled it off and stuffed it into an inner pocket close to my body. Then the snow buried me completely. The world went silent. So silent, I could hear my own heartbeat, slow and heavy. I don't know how much time passed, only that I couldn't fall asleep. I used my elbows to inch my way forward, my nails digging into the hard-packed snow. The cold seeped from my fingertips into my bones. I had no feeling in my legs, and my right shoulder ached as if it were being torn from my back. With every move, I remembered Julian's push. It wasn't an accident. He hadn't failed to see me. He saw me, and he knew I had been pushed off the safety line. But he didn't turn back. Gritting my teeth, I finally clawed a small opening through the layer of snow. The sky outside was a bleak gray, the wind cutting like a knife. In the distance, an orange light glowed from the direction of the emergency shelter. I thought they would come back for me. I truly believed that. Even if Julian had saved Sadie first, I thought that once she was safe, he would lead a rescue team back. I propped myself up behind a large rock and pulled out my radio. No signal. My phone screen was shattered. The blue light on my location-sharing tracker was faint but still blinking. I opened the app. Julian's icon was gone. He had turned it off. He had disabled our shared location. In that moment, the wind that poured down my collar felt colder than the avalanche itself. I stared at the blank map for a long time, then let out a laugh. The corner of my mouth split, and the taste of blood grew stronger. Julian Croft, you had better pray I actually die here. Otherwise, this mountain will remember what you did. I used the rock face to pull myself to my feet. In the distance was an old, abandoned gondola line leading to a decommissioned station midway down the mountain. It was a backup point I had noted when reviewing the resort's safety routes. I always had a good memory. Julian knew that. It was why he felt confident saying, "Alara knows the mountain. She'll get herself out." He used my composure as a justification for abandoning me. I dragged my injured leg toward the gondola station. The snow fell thicker and faster, quickly covering my tracks. I would walk a few steps, then fall to my knees, gasping for air, my lungs feeling as if they were filled with needles. As I neared the abandoned station, I heard the sound of a helicopter in the distance. I waved my arms frantically, but the helicopter didn't stop. It flew down the mountain. I would later learn that it was evacuating Sadie. Julian had reported to the rescue team that one female was suffering from shock and hypothermia and required priority transport. He never mentioned my name. Leaning against the station's dilapidated wooden door, I finally found the old emergency phone box inside. It was covered in a thick layer of frost. With trembling hands, I smashed the casing and pressed the red button. A crackle, then the line connected. Blackwood Peak Emergency Center, please state your situation. I opened my mouth, but my voice was so hoarse it didn't sound like my own. This is Alara Vance. The person on the other end was clearly stunned. Miss Vance? Mr. Croft said you were already on your way down the main trail. I closed my eyes. Excellent. He hadn't just not looked for me. He had fabricated my whereabouts. I'm at the number 3 abandoned gondola station, I said. Right leg injured, mild hypothermia, conscious. I need a rescue team immediately. The dispatcher was now flustered. We'll dispatch a team right away. I gripped the receiver, my knuckles white. Also, connect me to the Vance Foundation's Emergency Legal Counsel. Now? The dispatcher hesitated. Now. 30 seconds later, Silas Thorne's voice came through the line. Alara. The moment I heard his voice, I almost burst into tears, but I held them back. Silas, I said, initiate a level 1 asset preservation. He was silent for a second, then his voice turned cold. You're confirming? I confirm. Looking out the window at the endless snow, I said, word by word, preservation targets, all accident-related surveillance from Blackwood Peak, rescue logs, communication records for Julian Croft and Sadie Miller, and their check-in records at the Obsidian Lodge. Freeze all of Julian Croft's project authorizations at the Vance Foundation. Suspend all payments to his company, Apex Ascent. Silas's breath hitched. You're in trouble. I managed a small laugh. I almost died. His voice grew grim. I'm on it. I added, notify the hotel manager to seal Julian and Sadie's room. They are not to destroy anything. Understood, Silas said from the other end. Just before hanging up, I heard him say softly, Alara, hold on. I put down the receiver and slowly slid to the floor, leaning against the wall as the wind howled outside. 3 hours after being buried alive, I had made my first phone call. And down the mountain, in a luxurious hotel, Julian Croft and Sadie Miller were warming themselves by a fireplace. They would soon find out I wasn't dead. Julian later asked me why the first thing I did after being found alive wasn't to call him. I looked at him and almost laughed out loud, because I knew he wouldn't answer, and because I had already seen the truth. In that avalanche, it wasn't that he had no choice. He chose Sadie. So, now that I was alive, I had to choose myself. When the rescue team arrived at the abandoned station, I had started shivering uncontrollably. a deep, violent tremor that came from the marrow of my bones. My teeth chattered, and my consciousness drifted in and out. Mark, the lead rescuer, burst in and his face paled when he saw the blood and frostbite on me. "Miss Vance, what are you doing here?" I looked up at him. "When did you receive the report that I was missing?" He hesitated. I stared into his eyes. "Tell me the truth." Mark was silent for 2 seconds. "Mr. Croft initially said you had gone down the main trail. When we did the first head count and didn't see you, he said you might have gone back to the hotel to rest. We didn't officially confirm you were missing until 47 minutes ago." I closed my eyes. 47 minutes. In the golden hour of post-Avalanche rescue, Julian had erased me from the list with a simple "she probably went back to the hotel." Mark cursed under his breath. I didn't respond. He wrapped a thermal blanket around me while his team stabilized my leg. I suddenly grabbed his sleeve. "Mark, the rescue log. Don't change it." He looked at me. "Don't change it for anyone." Mark's expression hardened. "We have regulations." I nodded. "I trust you." As Ogo lifted me onto the stretcher, my phone finally got a bar of signal. A string of missed calls popped up on the screen. Not from Julian, but from my best friend Leo, from Silas, from my foundation secretary, and from my mother. The chat log with Julian was still open from the night before. He had sent, "After the shoot tomorrow, let's sit down and finalize the wedding details." I had replied, "Okay." Looking at that word now, it felt like a thorn in my side. As the rescue vehicle headed down the mountain, Silas called back. "The preservation order is in effect. The hotel manager has been notified and is on his way to the room. The foundation accounts are frozen, and the 3 pending payments to Apex Ascent, along with Julian's project authority, are all suspended." "Where is he now?" I asked. Silas paused. "The Obsidian Lodge, presidential suite. Sadie Miller is with him." The glare from the snow outside was blinding. I clutched the blanket tighter. "When did they check in?" "An hour and a half after the avalanche. Julian used your member credentials to book the room. It has a fireplace, a private hot spring, and a medical concierge service." I let out a laugh, my throat raw with pain. At least he wasn't worried I'd be cold. Silas didn't say anything. He knew that line didn't need a response. "Is the room sealed?" I asked. "The manager is at the door. Do you want me to patch you in?" I looked at my purple, frozen fingertips. "Yes." A few seconds later, the nervous voice of the hotel manager came through the phone. "Miss Vance? This is the duty manager at the Obsidian Lodge. Mr. Croft and Miss Miller are currently in the room. As per your instructions, we have 2 security guards and the floor supervisor with us." "Put it on speaker," I said quietly. "Yes, ma'am." The sound of knocking echoed through the phone, followed by Julian's impatient voice. "What is it?" The manager said, "Mr. Croft, apologies for the disturbance. We've been notified by the Vance Foundation's legal counsel that we need to temporarily seal your presidential suite." There was a moment of silence in the room, then Sadie's weak voice. "Seal it? Why?" "Julian, I'm scared." Julian's voice turned cold. "Who notified you?" "Miss Alara Vance," the manager replied. The crackling of the fireplace was audible over the phone, a sharp pop, like something breaking. Julian was silent for a long time. Then he asked, "Who did you say?" The manager repeated, "Miss Alara Vance. She has been located by the rescue team. She is conscious and is currently on her way down the mountain for medical treatment." Sadie let out a shriek not of relief, but of sheer panic. Julian's breathing became heavy. "She's alive?" I held the phone, saying nothing. The manager, unaware I was listening, continued professionally, "Yes, Mr. Croft, Miss Vance has requested that we seal the room and all items related to the incident, including but not limited to ski apparel, communication devices, thermal blankets, medical service records, and check-in documents." Julian finally lost his composure. "Let me talk to her." "I'm sorry, sir," the manager said. "Miss Vance did not request to speak with you." "Let me talk to her." His voice rose sharply, laced with a loss of control I had never heard before. I heard Sadie crying in the background. "Julian, what do we do? Did she misunderstand?" "I didn't mean to take her blanket. I was just so cold." Julian snapped in a low voice. "Shut up." I lay back in the rescue vehicle and slowly closed my eyes. So, he would tell Sadie to shut up. But only when his own interests were at stake. The manager continued, "Mr. Croft, please cooperate. Security will wait outside. You and Miss Miller are temporarily not permitted to remove any items other than your personal effects. Your phones will need to be registered, and communication records from the time of the incident will be logged. Julian exploded. What right do you have? The manager's voice grew colder. Mr. Croft, this suite was booked using the privileges of Miss Vance's Black Diamond account. Furthermore, the Blackwood Peak Public Safety and Rescue Project is funded by the Vance Foundation. According to the contract, all records of accommodation, medical care, and transport during an incident are subject to project review. It was quiet on the other end again. I could almost picture the look on Julian's face. He had always known how I could help him, but he never imagined I could also be the one to shut him down. Sadie whimpered. Julian, I'm cold. I want to change clothes first, the manager said. Miss Miller, the silver thermal blanket you are wearing also needs to be catalogued. According to the rescue supply inventory number, it is registered as Miss Vance's personal equipment. This time, Sadie went completely silent. I had heard enough. I raised my hand and ended the call. A message from Silas came in moments later. Hotel has executed the seal. Julian is demanding to contact you. I replied, don't answer. He wrote back, understood. When the ambulance arrived at the hospital, Leo was already waiting. He was in a black coat, his eyes terrifyingly red. When he saw me being carried out on a stretcher, he rushed over, his voice breaking. Alara, you scared me to death. I wanted to comfort him but had no strength. He saw my hands, and tears instantly streamed down his face. Where's Julian? The hotel, I said. Leo paused. With Sadie Miller, I added. The look of pain on his face slowly morphed into rage. Is he insane? I looked at the white lights of the emergency room. No, I said softly. He just finally stopped pretending. As the doctor treated my frostbite and abrasions, I broke out in a cold sweat from the pain. A soft tissue contusion on my right leg, a dislocated shoulder, minor cracks in my ribs, and frostbite on my fingers that needed monitoring. The doctor asked if my family had arrived. Leo was about to speak when I said, no family. He glanced at me. I added, a fiancé doesn't count. The doctor paused for a moment but didn't ask further. I appreciated that kind of adult discretion. At 1 a.m., Julian finally arrived at the hospital. When he pushed open the door to my room, he still smelled of the hotel's fireplace smoke. Sadie followed behind him, wearing his coat, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. She looked as if she had suffered a terrible injustice. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought she was the one who had been buried in the snow for 3 hours. Julian stood by my bed. Seeing that I was awake, his first words weren't to ask if I was in pain. He said, Alara, why did you have the hotel room sealed? Leo laughed in disbelief. You have the audacity to ask that? Julian ignored him, his eyes fixed on me, his brow furrowed. I know you're upset, but it's not what you think. Sadie was in a very dangerous situation. I had to save her first. I looked at him. And what about me? He froze. Sadie stepped forward, crying. Alara, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. If I hadn't slipped, Julian wouldn't have. I cut her off. Why were you on a closed training course? Her tears clung to her eyelashes, making her look pitiably beautiful. I just wanted to help take pictures. Who asked you to be there? I asked. She looked at Julian. His expression darkened. I did. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Don't make it hard on her. Such a familiar line. Ever since Sadie had returned from abroad, I had heard it countless times. She was late because she was still adjusting to being back. She broke the vase my mother left me because her hand slipped. She wore my gown by mistake because a staff member mixed them up. She suggested changing the main flowers at our wedding to white roses in the planning group chat because she didn't know my late mother despised them. Every time, Julian would say, don't make it hard for her. As if merely pointing out the facts made me small-minded. I looked at him. Julian, do you know why it took the rescue team 47 minutes to officially start searching for me after I went missing? His eyes flickered. It was subtle, but I saw it. Because, I continued, you told them I had already gone down the main trail. The room fell silent. Leo shot a sharp look at him. You said what? Julian's Adam's apple bobbed. It was chaotic. I was just making a judgment based on the situation. A judgment? I picked up the frostbite report the nurse had just given me. My location tracker was active at the number 3 abandoned gondola station for 2 hours. You turned off our shared location. And you say you judged that I was on my way down? Sadie's crying stopped. Julian's face hardened. Alara, now is not the time to be pointing fingers. I laughed. Then when is the time? After I'm good and dead? Panic finally flashed in Julian's eyes. That's not what I meant. I slowly raised my right hand. The ring finger was bare. Julian's pupils contracted when he saw it. I placed the engagement ring on the bedside table. It landed with a soft clink. Julian, the moment you pushed me away, we were over. His face went ashen. Sadie, however, subconsciously tightened her grip on his sleeve. I looked at their intertwined hands and said calmly, "My lawyer is already drafting the notice to dissolve our engagement. Now get out. I need to rest." Julian stepped forward. "Alara, don't be like this." Leo immediately blocked him. "She was left in the snow for 3 hours because of you, and you're telling her not to be like this?" Julian gritted his teeth. "This is between us." I looked at him. "No," I said. "From the moment you filed a false report, turned off my location, and checked into a hotel, this became a matter of liability." His face finally, completely changed. After Leo kicked Julian out of the room, he stood in the hallway for a long time. I could hear his hushed phone conversation. "The hospital was too quiet at night not to. Don't let the media know yet. Try to contact the foundation. Yes, the wedding is still on. We can't let anyone think we have a problem." I leaned back against the hospital bed, an IV still in my hand. So, he hadn't rushed here because he was worried about my pain. He was afraid of what I might say now that I was alive. Sadie hadn't gone far. She sat crying on a bench in the hallway. Nurses passed by, unable to help but glance at her. Her crying was strategic, not loud, but just audible enough. I really didn't mean it. Does Alara hate me now? Julian, don't fight with her because of me. She's your fiancé, after all. Every sentence was a performance of retreat, yet every word was a reminder to anyone listening that her relationship with Julian was anything but ordinary. Leo sat by my bed, peeling an apple. The blade moved smoothly around the fruit. If I go out there and slap her right now, would that count as self-defense? Emotionally stable self-defense, I said. He shoved the apple into my hand, exasperated. You can still laugh? I took a bite. It was sweet, with a slightly bitter aftertaste. Crying is useless. What about the pain? Leo asked, his voice low. Does it hurt? I didn't answer. He understood immediately and muttered a curse under his breath. At 3 a.m., Silas arrived at the hospital. He brought a black file folder, his hair still damp with melted snow. I have the first batch of materials, he said, spreading the documents on the small table by my bed. The first was the rescue team's timeline. 14, 26. Avalanche occur. 14. 31. First group evacuated to the emergency shelter. 14, 38. Sadie Miller is airlifted. 14, 47. Rescue team's first inquiry about my location. Julian Croft replies, Alara Vance may have already gone down the main trail. 15, 23. Rescue team notes I have not arrived at the lodge and makes a second inquiry. Julian Croft replies, she knows the routes well. She might have gone to the Foundation's temporary office. 15, 58. Emergency call connected. I report my own location. Official search and rescue initiated. I stared at those lines for a long time. 47 minutes wasn't just a number. It was every moment I fought to stay awake in the snow. It was the time my fingernails broke in the ice, the blood freezing and cracking open again. It was the time Julian spent sitting with Sadie in a helicopter, ordering her a fireplace, hot soup, and a medical concierge. Silas presented the second document, the hotel records. Julian had used my Black Diamond account privileges to open the presidential suite. Check-in time, 1546. Fireplace service, 1550. 2. Hot spring reservation, 16:8. Sadie had also separately ordered a change of women's clothing, the cost all charged to my account. Leo was furious. He uses your money to get another woman a room, to warm her by your fire? I looked at the bill and suddenly found it all so absurd. Julian and I had been together for 5 years. When he was struggling to start his company, I was the one who accompanied him on trips to remote mountains, helped him negotiate rescue partnerships, and revised his project proposals. When his father had a heart attack, I was the one who found the specialists. When his mother complained I was too busy with work, I cleared my Wednesday evenings to have dinner with them. When his brand's funding chain broke, I used my foundation's resources to create a co-branded charity line that got him new financing. He once held my hand and said, Alara, there would be no apex ascent without you. But later, that sentence took on a different meaning. He couldn't make it without me, which was why he had to keep me around, but he was never willing to actually put me first. Silas said quietly. I've prepared the notice to dissolve the engagement. Are you sure you want to send it today? Send it, I said. He looked at me. The Croft family might retaliate. Your wedding invitations have already gone out. Many of your business partners are tied to this wedding. If you call it off now, they'll say you're emotionally unstable after the accident. I nodded. So, we send the legal notice first, not a public statement. Leo was confused. Why? Let them make the first move, I said. Silas understood. The more they try to pressure you, the more useful the evidence becomes. I nodded. Julian knew the old me too well. I hated airing our private matters in public. After my mother passed away, I had gotten used to handling all my difficulties on my own. The Crofts had always known this. They thought that by pressuring me with the wedding, our partnerships, and our family's reputation, I would back down. So I would let them push. The harder they pushed, the more violent the rebound. The next morning, the calls from Julian's parents came as expected. I didn't answer. His mother started sending voice messages. Alara, I know you feel wronged, but Julian was also thinking of the bigger picture. In an avalanche, no one can guarantee every move is perfect. Sadie is fragile, and she was hurt because of Julian years ago. He was protecting her out of a sense of responsibility. You two are about to be married. A woman has to learn to see the bigger picture. Sealing the hotel, freezing his projects. What will people think of the Croft family? After listening to 3 of these, I handed the phone to Silas to be saved as evidence. He nodded. Soon after, Julian's father sent a message, much more direct. Alara, the Apex Ascent projects with the Foundation cannot stop. Sign the authorizations before the wedding as you promised. The accident is a separate matter. Don't sacrifice the greater good for something small. Something small. Me, buried in the snow for 3 hours, was something small. His project funding was the greater good. I placed my phone face down on the table. At noon, Julian came to the hospital again, this time without Sadie. He had changed into a black coat, and the dark circles under his eyes suggested a sleepless night. He stood at the door, his voice hoarse. Alara, we need to talk. Leo sneered. Talk about what? How you used her money to get Sadie a private hot spring. Julian's face darkened. Leo, stay out of this. I raised a hand, signaling for Leo to step aside. Reluctantly, he did. Julian walked in, his gaze falling on my bandaged hand. Does it still hurt? He asked softly. Belated concern is more disgusting than cold indifference. Sometimes, I said. His Adam's apple moved. Can you lift the seal on the hotel room? The media has already gotten wind of it. Apex Ascent has a new product launch coming up. If this liability issue gets out, the entire team will be affected. I looked at him. And? So, withdraw the order first, he said, his tone softening. We can resolve this internally. Whatever compensation you want, I'll give it to you. I want you to admit that you pushed me during the avalanche, that you delayed the rescue report, and that you turned off our shared location, I asked. He fell silent. I laughed. You can't do that, can you? Julian's eyes narrowed. Alara, I admit I didn't handle the situation well, but you can't characterize it as intentional harm. I was in a state of chaos. Chaos enough to book Sadie a private hot spring? His face stiffened. She had severe hypothermia. Where's the doctor's report? What? Her severe hypothermia. The medical concierge at the hotel must have a record. My lawyer has already requested it. Julian, don't tell lies that are so easily exposed. He looked at me, his gaze finally turning cold. Are you interrogating me? I looked back calmly. I'm saving myself. Julian seemed stung by my words. You were never like this before, he said suddenly. I nodded. Before, my fiancé hadn't pushed me into the snow. A pained look flashed across his face. I didn't push you. I simply picked up my phone and played a damaged but audible audio clip from my sports camera. The wind was loud, then Sadie's scream and my own voice, Julian, back to the main trail. Then his sharp command, get back, followed by the sound of impact and my muffled grunt as I fell. The room was dead silent. Julian stared at the phone, his face draining of color. I turned off the audio. The camera is still being repaired. The video should be recoverable soon. He was finally panicking. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, leaving his hand hanging in the air. Alara, don't do this. Our 5 years together weren't fake. I looked at him. 5 years. Of course they weren't fake. I truly loved you. I loved you enough to help you through your lowest point, to offer up my resources, my connections, my time. But precisely because it wasn't fake, your push hurt that much more. I said, Julian, 5 years were real. The avalanche was real too. His eyes turned red. I'll make it up to you. You can't. His voice grew heavy. Alara, you're not emotionally stable right now. Don't make any decisions yet. The wedding is in 20 days. We can postpone it, but we can't cancel it. I suddenly understood. It wasn't that he didn't grasp the extent of my injuries. He just felt that my injuries could be ranked behind his brand, his wedding, his reputation. I took the ring box from the bedside table and held it out to him. Take it. He didn't move. I placed the box in front of him. I will not marry a man who pushed me away during an avalanche. Julian stared at the box, his voice a low, guttural sound. You'll regret this. I looked at him. No, I won't. He turned and left, his back rigid. After the door closed, Leo rushed over and hugged me. I didn't cry. I just felt a cord inside me finally snap. That afternoon, the Croft family released a statement to the public, saying that I was suffering from shock after the avalanche and was temporarily emotionally unstable. The wedding preparations were proceeding as planned, with Julian by my side throughout my recovery. The statement was accompanied by a photo of Julian in the hospital hallway, his head bowed. It was a well-angled shot, making it look like he had been watching over me all night. The comments section was filled with praise for his devotion. What a responsible man. He's still watching over his fiancé after an avalanche. That's true love. Miss Vance, don't be difficult. Where else would you find a man like this? Leo was furious and wanted to post a rebuttal on social media, but I stopped him. It's not time yet. They're walking all over you, he exclaimed. I looked at the statement and slowly took a screenshot. Let them walk a little more. Leo stared at me. I sent the screenshot to Silas. The Crofts have started their smear campaign. Add it to the evidence file. Silas replied quickly. Received. We should have the first part of the camera footage repaired by tonight. I looked out the window at the melting snow. Julian thought I would be the same as before, that I would prioritize the bigger picture, swallow my grievances, and clean up his mess. But he forgot. A person who survives an avalanche comes out with a heart that has been frozen solid. On the day I was discharged, the Croft family sent a car to pick me up. The driver said, Mr. Croft instructed that we take you directly to the family estate. His parents and grandparents are waiting for you. I sat at the hospital entrance, looking at the familiar black SUV. It was the same car that always picked me up for visits to the Crofts. His mother would have soup simmering, his father would be waiting in the study to talk about business, and Julian would sit beside me, occasionally squeezing my hand. Back then, I thought I was about to have a family. Now I understood it wasn't a family. It was a long-running boardroom for mutual interests. I didn't get in. Leo pulled up in his car and honked twice. Miss Vance, your ride is here. The driver looked troubled. Miss Vance, Mr. Croft said. I cut him off. Tell Julian I'll get there myself. Leo hit the gas. On the way, he asked, Are you really going to the Croft estate? I looked at a message from Silas on my phone. Yes. You're not fully recovered. That's exactly why I have to go. They want to frame this as a family dispute. I'm going to see exactly how they plan to do that. The Croft estate was on a semi-wooded hill south of the city. The red lanterns for the wedding were still hanging in the courtyard. The servants looked awkward when they saw me. The living room was full. Julian's father, mother, Julian himself, and several other relatives. Sadie Miller was there too, wearing a pale pink sweater, a bandage wrapped around her wrist. She was curled up in a corner of the sofa like a frightened fawn. As soon as I entered, Julian's mother stood up. Alara, you're finally here. She tried to take my hand, but I sidestepped her. Her smile froze for a second before she said softly, Still angry? I know you feel wronged, but families don't hold grudges. I sat down. Who exactly is family here? The living room fell silent. Julian's mother's face changed. His father cleared his throat. Alara, don't speak out of anger. We asked you here today to settle things with the accident and the wedding. I glanced at the table. Just as I expected, there were documents laid out. A wedding itinerary confirmation, a supplementary authorization for the foundation, and an internal settlement memorandum for the accident. I almost laughed. They were so efficient. I had nearly died in the snow, and they had already organized my emotions, my wedding, my money, and my silence into 3 neat files. Julian's father pushed his glasses up. The situation on the day of the accident was complex. Julian admittedly did not handle things perfectly. But the Avalanche was an act of God. As the project lead, you also bear some responsibility for on-site safety management. I looked at him. So this matter is not suitable for public disclosure, Julian's father said. We suggest an internal settlement. The Croft family will offer you a sum of compensation, and the wedding will proceed as planned. We will simply tell the public you are recovering from the shock. His mother added, Sadie was terrified too. For you to seal her room, investigate her phone. The poor girl has barely eaten these past few days. Sadie's tears immediately began to fall. Alara, I really didn't mean to take anything. I know you don't like me, but I was just so scared that day. Scared enough to take my thermal blanket? I asked. Her face went white. I didn't know it was yours. My name was written on it. She was speechless. Julian frowned. Alara, that's enough. It's just a blanket. I looked at him. To you, what isn't just a blanket, just 47 minutes, just a shared location. I almost died, and that was just me being emotionally unstable. Julian's mother was displeased. Alara, don't speak so sharply. Julian has had a hard time these past few days too. I laughed. Staying in a presidential suite, warming by a fire, ordering a private hot spring, it must have been very hard. One of the relatives coughed into his hand. Julian's face was grim. That was to take care of Sadie. Your fiancé was still on the mountain, I said. He stared at me. I told you. I thought you were on your way down. Did you confirm it? It was too chaotic. Was it chaotic when you turned off our shared location? He fell silent. His mother quickly interjected. Shared location is just a silly couple's thing. How can you blow it out of proportion? Alara, a woman who is too pedantic will drive love away. I looked at her. Then please, teach me. My fiancé holds another woman during an avalanche and leaves me on the mountain. How should I not be pedantic? She was speechless. Julian's father's face darkened. Alara Vance, are you here to solve a problem or to dredge up the past? To solve a problem, I said. I placed the documents Silas had prepared on the table. First, dissolve the engagement. Second, the Vance Foundation will suspend all project authorizations with Apex assent. Third, the accident liability will proceed through a formal investigation. Fourth, Julian Croft and Sadie Miller will publicly retract the false statements the Croft family has released and admit that I am not emotionally unstable or acting out. With every point, the faces of the Crofts grew uglier. Julian's mother slammed the table. You're trying to ruin Julian. I looked at her calmly. He already tried to ruin me once during the avalanche. Sadie stood up, crying. Alara, if it's about me, I can leave. I'll go abroad and never see Julian again. Don't hurt him because of me. She spoke as if she were the one making the sacrifice. I looked at her. Whether you leave or not has nothing to do with me. She froze. What I am investigating is why you trespassed on a closed training course, why you took my emergency equipment, why you remained silent when the rescue team was inquiring about my whereabouts, and why you checked into a hotel with Julian after the incident without proactively reporting me as missing. The fragile look on her face finally cracked. I was in shock. You were in shock, but you remembered to order a hot spring? Leo, who had come with me, sneered from the side. Sadie bit her lip, her tears falling faster. Julian stood up and moved in front of her. Alara Vance, direct your anger at me. I looked at his subconscious protective gesture and felt nothing. No pain. Perhaps when the pain reaches its peak, all that's left is clarity. Don't worry, I said. Neither of you will get away with it. Julian's father finally dropped his gentle facade. Alara, don't forget that Apex Ascent and the Vance Foundation have collaborated for 3 years. Many of our accounts are intertwined. If this gets ugly, it might not look good for you either. It was a threat. I looked up. Are you suggesting I should conduct an audit? His expression faltered. I took another file from my bag. Good. The Foundation's internal audit begins today. All Apex Ascent-related expenses, reimbursements, equipment purchases, hotel fees, and personal expenses charged to the project will be re-examined. Julian's face changed instantly. What personal expenses? His mother asked, her voice tight. I looked at Sadie. Her fingers were unconsciously twisting the hem of her sweater. I said slowly, for example, Miss Miller's 3 photography equipment purchases since her return, 2 snow therapy spa retreats, And of course, this presidential suite. The living room fell completely silent. Julian's mother looked at him in shock. Julian? He avoided her gaze. His father's face was ashen. Alara, you can't just say things like that in front of relatives. If the receipts are real, it's not just empty words, I said, standing up. Today was not a negotiation. It was a notification. Julian finally snapped, grabbing my wrist. Alara! My arm was still injured, and the pain made my face pale. Leo immediately rushed forward. Let her go! I raised my uninjured hand and pressed the record button on my phone. Julian Croft, are you now continuing to apply pressure to an injured party from the incident? He let go as if he'd been burned. I looked at him. See? You know to be afraid too. I turned to leave. As I reached the door, Sadie suddenly called out, Alara, do you really have to be this ruthless? I turned back. She stood behind Julian, her eyes red, her voice as light as the wind. If Julian hadn't saved me, then I might have really died. I looked at her. Did he save you? She froze. The ones who saved you were the rescue team, the helicopter, and the emergency system funded by my foundation. What Julian did was hold you, leave, and then leave me behind in the snow. Sadie's face went white. Don't package someone else's life as evidence of your love story. After I said that, I left. After the car door closed, Leo was still trembling. You were incredible back there. I leaned back in the seat, exhausted, and closed my eyes. It's not enough. My phone vibrated. A message from Silas. The first segment of the camera footage is restored. Below it was a screenshot. Before the avalanche, Sadie was standing off the main trail, holding my silver thermal blanket. Julian was looking at her, his expression tense. And in the corner of the frame, lip-reading software had deciphered Sadie's words. She was saying, "She's in the way." I stared at that screenshot for a long time. She's in the way. Not I'm scared. Not help me. She's in the way. Those 4 simple words were like a thin blade, slowly slicing through flesh. Did Julian hear it? I don't know. But I know that afterward, he did indeed push me away. The next day, I went to the data recovery center. Leo wanted to come, but I told him no. This was something I had to see for myself. The engineer placed the sports camera on a transparent anti-static mat. The casing was severely damaged, but the memory card was well protected. The footage was shaky, the audio distorted by wind noise, but the key moments were recoverable. The screen lit up, the white glare of the snowfield stinging my eyes. In the video, Julian stood to my left, Sadie to his right. I heard my own voice. Sadie, come back. That's not a designated shooting area. Sadie laughed. Alara, just one shot. The wind has changed. Get back on the main trail. Julian sounded impatient. Alara, don't be so tense. I looked at the version of myself on screen, wearing a red windbreaker, my hair messy in the wind, still holding a route map. In that moment, I was still trying to protect everyone, including them. Suddenly, the snow surface vibrated. Mark's voice came through the radio. Pull back! Pull back now! The camera started to shake. I ran to pull Julian away. Sadie screamed. Her foot slipped, but she was close to the main rope. Julian grabbed her. I yelled, "Back to the main trail, don't stop!" Sadie cried out, "Julian, my legs are weak, I can't walk." Julian looked at me. "Go get help." "There's no time! We have to go together." Then it happened. In the footage, Sadie grabbed Julian's sleeve, her voice trembling but terrifyingly clear. "She's in the way." The next second, Julian's hand was on my shoulder. The frame violently flipped. The sounds of wind, impact, and my own grunt of pain all mixed together. Then his voice, muffled but audible, "Get Sadie out first." A rescuer asked, "What about Miss Vance?" Julian said, "She knows the way. She'll get herself out." The screen went black for a few seconds. The engineer paused the video. No one in the room spoke. I stared at the dark screen and felt a strange sense of calm. The most painful moment wasn't seeing the evidence. It was when the evidence proved you hadn't misunderstood anyone at all. The engineer asked quietly, "Miss Vance, should I continue?" "Continue," I said. The rest of the footage was fragmented. The camera was buried, only recording audio. Sadie crying, "Julian, did I get Alara in trouble?" Julian panting, "Don't think about that. Let's get down first." Sadie, "But, will she blame me?" Julian, "I'll handle it." Sadie, "She's so capable. She should be able to get out, right?" Julian didn't answer. After a moment, he said, "Stop crying. Your hands are freezing." Sadie in a low voice, "I only have you now." After that, a long silence. I leaned back in the chair and slowly exhaled. Can this be used as evidence? Silas, who had joined me, asked. I nodded. Compile a timeline. Add the rescue logs, hotel records, the Crofts' public statements, and the financial audit. He flipped through his files. Alara, this is already enough to give them a major headache. It's not enough, I said. He looked at me. Julian still hasn't admitted it, I said. Silas frowned. Do you need him to admit it? I don't, I said, looking at the screen. But I need everyone who believed in his deep love to hear his lies for themselves. When I left the recovery center, it was already dark. Just as I got in the car, a call came from Sadie. I didn't answer. She sent a text. Alara, let's meet. Just the two of us. I looked at it for a moment and replied, location. She chose a very private cafe. When I arrived, she was already waiting in a private room. Today she wasn't wearing white, but a dark gray coat. Her makeup was minimal, and she didn't look as fragile as she did in front of Julian. I sat down. Speak. Sadie stirred her coffee. How much money do you want? She asked softly. I looked up. She smiled. Don't look at me like that, Alara. We're all adults. You're making such a scene, isn't it just for compensation? I watched her. Does Julian know you're here? Her expression flickered. This is between us. How much are you offering? I asked. She seemed to relax, taking a check from her bag. $10 million. You drop the investigation and marry Julian as planned. I'll go abroad after the wedding and won't bother you. I almost laughed. $10 million. For my life. She bit her lip. It's not like you died. The air in the room went still. I looked at her. Sadie, you're finally done pretending. The look of fragility on her face retreated, replaced by something hard. Alara, you already have so much. You have a family name, a career, the Croft family's approval. Why can't you let go of a little bit of the past? Julian and I knew each other before you. Her eyes reddened, but this time it wasn't a performance for Julian. It was hate. If I hadn't gone abroad back then, do you really think he would have fallen in love with you? So you came back to take back what's yours? I asked. I just wanted to know if he still had me in his heart, she said. And now I know. She lifted her chin. I know too, I nodded. Congratulations. She frowned. What do you mean? I picked up the check, glanced at it, and put it back on the table. Sadie, if you like Julian, then take him. But don't try to have him, and the road I paved for him at the same time. Her face went pale. You want to be the boss of Apex Ascent, I continued. You want to stand on stage at the product launch. You want the Croft family to accept you. You want the world to praise your youthful love story. Fine. But you have to bear the consequences yourselves. Sadie's voice grew shrill. What gives you the right to be so high and mighty? The right comes from me almost dying in the snow while you were warming yourself by a fire in a hotel. She shot to her feet, finally losing control. So what? He chose to save me. A person's choice in a life-or-death situation doesn't lie. Alara Vance, you lost. I looked at her and pressed stop on my phone's recording app. Her face froze instantly. I put the phone in my bag. Thanks for your cooperation. Sadie lunged at me, trying to grab it, but I stepped aside. She crashed into the corner of the table, spilling coffee all over herself. I opened the door. Outside, Silas and the cafe manager were waiting. Sadie was utterly panicked. You set me up. I looked back at her. No. You were just too desperate to win. That night, Julian called me 27 times. I didn't answer a single one. He finally sent a text. Alara, what do you want? I sent him his first and last reply. The truth. The Apex Ascent new product launch was scheduled for a week later. The theme was, Walk with the Snow. It sounded ironic now. I had helped Julian come up with that theme. I'd told him an outdoor brand couldn't just sell adrenaline. It had to take on the responsibility of safety. After hearing that, Julian had hugged me and laughed. This is why I can't live without you. Looking back, he really couldn't live without me. Not because of love, but because I could package his ambition as responsibility. In the Foundation's conference room, everyone was looking at me. The project manager for Apex Ascent asked timidly, Miss Vance, are we really suspending everything? If we stop the 3 payments, their product launch will be severely impacted. I flipped through the audit report. Suspended. But Mr. Croft, I looked up. The room went silent. From now on, I said, within the Foundation, he will be referred to as Julian Croft, or the head of Apex Ascent. We will no longer use Mr. Croft. The manager nodded immediately. All collaborative projects will be re-audited, I continued. For any personal expenses charged to the project, Apex Ascent has 3 days to provide an explanation. If they cannot, we will proceed with recovery. A secretary distributed the files. Someone couldn't help but say, Miss Vance, everyone is saying you and Mr. Croft are just having a lover's quarrel. If we do this, won't it seem too harsh? I looked at him. If a partner delays a rescue report and misuses charity resources during an incident, do you think suspending an audit is harsh? The man flushed. No. Then proceed according to protocol, I said, closing the file. After the meeting, Julian stormed into my office. He had clearly been notified and his face was dark. You stopped the launch collaboration? I sat behind my desk. Not the collaboration. The project audit. What's the difference? A collaboration can be resumed. An audit depends on the results. He slammed his hands on my desk, leaning over me. Alara, are you really going to push me this far? I looked at the space behind him. His shadow used to be there. When he secured his first round of funding, he had spun me around in this very office, laughing. Alara Vance, when Apex Ascent goes public, I'll give you the very first commemorative pin. When the pin was finally made, he gave it to Sadie. The reason? She had climbed his first mountain with him, and it had sentimental value. I had just smiled at the time and said it was okay. I now realize that every it's okay eventually becomes someone else's license to take more. You're the one who walked to this point, I said. Julian suppressed his anger. Do you know what canceling the launch means? Half a year of the team's hard work, the trust of our partners, the market window, it will all be affected. I know. And you're still stopping it? I looked up. During the avalanche, you also knew I was still on the mountain. Didn't you leave anyway? His face went white. I didn't intentionally leave you behind. Then we'll wait for the investigation. He walked around the desk, trying to get closer. I pressed the intercom. Please send security. Julian stopped, his eyes a mixture of hurt and disbelief. You're calling security on me? This is a workplace. I'm your fiancé. Ex-fiancé. He was silent for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, Alara, I was wrong. My fingers paused. It was the first time since the avalanche he had admitted fault, but I felt no emotion, only that it was too late. Far too late. I shouldn't have turned off the location sharing, he said. I shouldn't have delayed the report. I shouldn't have brought Sadie to the training course. Punish me however you want, but don't take it out on Apex Ascent. See? The apology was still followed by Apex Ascent. Julian, I said, you don't know you were wrong. You just know it hurts now. A flash of shame crossed his face. In your eyes, am I that despicable? I looked at him. Before the avalanche? No. The words seemed to hit him. He stood there for a long time, his voice hoarse. Then can you trust me one more time? I didn't answer. He suddenly said, Sadie is leaving. I looked up. She's already agreed to go abroad. I won't have any more contact with her. Alara, we can postpone the wedding. The foundation partnership can be reevaluated, but our 5 years of history can't just be thrown away. If I hadn't initiated the asset preservation, would you have made her leave? I asked. He was silent. If the camera hadn't recorded the audio, would you have admitted it? I asked again. He was still silent. I laughed. You see, you're not asking for forgiveness. You're asking for the evidence trail to stop. Julian's face turned a deathly gray. The office door was knocked on. Security stood at the entrance. Miss Vance? I looked at Julian. Please leave. He didn't move. Alara, don't force my hand. I found it laughable. What will you do? He stared at me, his eyes turning cold. You received psychological counseling after the accident. The Croft family and the hospital both have records. If you continue to escalate this, people will think your judgment is impaired. I slowly stood up. So that was his trump card. After my mother died, I had indeed sought therapy. Not because I was fragile, but because I had been dealing with her funeral, the foundation's handover, and company debts, and I hadn't slept properly for 3 months. Julian had gone with me twice. He had held me and said, Alara, there's no shame in this. I'll protect you from now on. Now he was trying to turn the trust I had placed in him during my most difficult time into a weapon against me. I looked at him and suddenly felt no anger, just disgust. Julian, you truly are something else. His eyes flickered away for a moment, but then hardened again. I didn't want to do this. You're the one who won't stop. I nodded. Fine. He frowned. What do you mean? I took out my phone and called Silas. Silas, Julian Croft just threatened me to my face. He's planning to disclose my past therapy records to question my judgment post-accident. Julian's face changed dramatically. I continued, contact the counseling center from back then and have them issue a privacy protection letter. Then add this to the legal notice. On the other end of the line, Silas let out a cold laugh. He really dared. He's always been daring, I said. I just didn't know it before. After hanging up, I looked at Julian. Anything else? For example, that I'm too strong-willed and not suitable for marriage? That I've been controlling your career? That Sadie is your one true love and I'm just a business arrangement? His lips moved, but no words came out. You'd better say it all at once, I said. I'll sue for everything together. His face was a mask of utter defeat. A security guard stepped forward. Julian finally turned and left. At the door, he paused. Alara Vance, you're going to destroy us all. No, I said. He turned back. I looked at him and said, word by word, I'm just stopping my rescue of you. After the door closed, I sat back in my chair, my fingers still trembling, not from fear, but from nausea. Leo burst in. Did he threaten you? I saw his face when he left. He looked like a ghost. I told him what happened. He paced around, furious. How dare he? You only went to therapy back then because you got sick helping his family with their project mess. Yes, I said. That year, Julian's father had surgery. His mother was a nervous wreck, and Julian's company was being hounded by suppliers. I spent my days negotiating partnerships, my evenings comforting his mother, and my nights revising Julian's financing proposals. After I collapsed from exhaustion, Julian said he would remember it for the rest of his life. And he did. He remembered it as material he could use to attack me. That night, the news that the Apex Ascent launch collaboration had been suspended spread through the industry. The Croft family didn't respond publicly, but they began to quietly spread rumors that I was emotionally unstable after the accident and was taking out a personal dispute on a business partnership. Anonymous posts soon appeared online. Certain foundation head has extreme control issues, goes crazy when fiancé saves someone else, even uses charity project for revenge. Public opinion started to shift. People called me vicious. Some said Sadie was also a victim. Others argued that, in an avalanche, saving someone is instinctual, and as the survivor, I should be more forgiving. Leo was so angry he wanted to smash his phone. I, however, saved a screenshot of every high-engagement rumor. Don't be hasty. He looked at me. What on earth are you waiting for? I opened my email. The Data Recovery Center had sent the complete video file. At the same time, the hotel manager sent the list of sealed items. Among them was something unexpected. A spare SIM card Sadie had left in the suite's bathroom. Silas was already applying to have its data read. I looked at the screen. I'm waiting for them to finish their performance. The hotel surveillance footage was clearer than I had imagined. In the executive floor corridor, Julian was supporting Sadie as they came out of the elevator. His black jacket was half-soaked, and Sadie was completely wrapped in my silver thermal blanket, her face buried in his chest. The timestamp was 15:46. At that moment, I was still at the abandoned gondola station, my fingers too frozen to bend. In the video, the manager approached and asked if they needed to call the police or request additional rescue support. Julian said no, the resort was handling it. The manager then asked if Miss Vance was with them and if he should prepare a room for me. Julian paused for a second, then said, "She has other arrangements." I paused the video. Other arrangements. The arrangement of being buried in snow? Silas, sitting next to me, had a grim expression. This is critical. He knew you were missing, but didn't ask the hotel to help confirm your status. I continued playing the video. Julian took Sadie into the suite. Half an hour later, a waiter delivered hot soup, dry clothes, and a medical kit. Sadie changed into a cashmere robe provided by the hotel and sat by the fireplace. Julian knelt in front of her, drying her hair. She cried and said, "Did I cause you trouble?" Julian replied, "Don't think about it." Sadie asked, "Will Alara blame me?" Julian was silent for a moment. "I'll explain it to her." Sadie lowered her head. "She's so capable. She's not useless like me." Julian reached out and stroked her head. "You don't have to compare yourself to her." I turned off the video at that point. Leo cursed beside me. "Compare to you? She's not worthy." I didn't say anything. I didn't feel much pain. Maybe I was numb. Or maybe the Julian I knew had already died in that avalanche, and the man in the surveillance video was just confirmation of the body. The list of sealed items from the hotel included, besides the blanket and service records, a handwritten note from Sadie. Can we change the main visual for the launch? I want to use that shot of the snowy backdrop. It has more of a story. Below it was Julian's annotation. We'll talk about it after the wedding. I looked at the note and laughed. So, she wasn't trying to offer congratulations. She was trying to replace me, from the charity film to the product launch to the spot by Julian's side, step by step. Silas handed me another document, a financial statement. The audit team had found 7 expenses related to Sadie Miller that Apex Ascent had charged to the foundation's collaborative project over the last 6 months. Photography equipment, travel, spa treatments, hotels, and clothing, totaling over $136,000. Leo's eyes widened. He used your money to help his mistress steal you from him? Not my money, I corrected. It's the charity project's money. That's even more serious, Silas said, nodding. If Apex Ascent can't justify these as direct project expenses, repayment is just the first step. It could affect their nonprofit status in the future. Send the demand letter, I said. Now. Silas looked at me. Julian will lose his mind. I imported the surveillance screenshots into the evidence folder. Whether he loses his mind or not has nothing to do with me. Julian did, in fact, lose his mind. He called half an hour later. This time, I answered. His voice was low and tight. You audited Sadie's expenses? I didn't audit her expenses, I replied. She spent the money from the project's account. I approved those expenses. So the demand letter is addressed to Apex Ascent, not her. He was silent for a second, then his anger flared. You know she just got back to the country and doesn't have much income. That money is nothing to you. I almost laughed. Julian, do you know what that money was originally for? He didn't speak. It was to purchase 30 new winter-grade location trackers for the Blackwood Peak Rescue Team, I said. The other end of the line went completely silent. You used it to buy lenses for Sadie, to book her hotels, to pay for her spa treatments. On the day of the avalanche, my tracker had a weak signal because it was an old model, which nearly delayed my location being found. And you're telling me that money is nothing? Julian's breathing became ragged. I didn't know the tracker procurement was postponed. You signed the approval. I sign a lot of documents. I can't track every single item. And that, I said, is why we have audits. His voice grew hoarse. Alara, are you trying to send me to prison? Did you break the law? I asked. He fell silent again. If you didn't, I said softly, what are you afraid of? He hung up. I stared at the dark screen, feeling nothing. That afternoon, the Croft family launched their second counterattack. They arranged for the media to photograph Sadie leaving a psychologist's office. The press release was cleverly worded. Avalanche survivor plagued by guilt, suspected mental breakdown, due to Fiancé's aggressive pursuit of accountability. Fiancé's aggressive pursuit. They didn't use my name, but every word pointed at me. The comments section exploded again. People called me heartless. Some said the first love was a life too. Others argued Julian was right to save the weaker person, and as his fiancé, I should be understanding. Leo was about to go crazy. They're banking on the fact you won't release the videos. It's not that I won't, I said. It's not time yet. Not time? What are you waiting for? The pre-wedding banquet. The Crofts' pre-wedding banquet was in 3 days. They hadn't canceled it, they had expanded the guest list. The goal was obvious, to use a public event to force my attendance and trap me with the wedding narrative. If I didn't go, I was making a big deal out of nothing. If I went, I was tacitly agreeing the engagement was still on. If I caused a scene, they would say I was emotionally unstable. They had calculated every move. But they didn't know I was waiting for this exact stage. For 3 days, I didn't respond to anything. I went to follow-up appointments, changed my dressings, gave my statement, organized financial records, and confirmed the engagement dissolution notice with Silas. Julian sent messages every day, starting with questions, then explanations, and finally, pleading. Alara, I really panicked that day. I know you suffered. I'll make it up to you. The launch can be canceled, but don't cancel the wedding. My mom has a weak heart. Don't upset her. Sadie has already agreed to leave. What more do you want? I didn't reply to a single one. On the morning of the banquet, Sadie sent me a photo. In it, she was wearing my wedding dress fitting gown. I had spent 3 months with the designer on that dress, the hem embroidered with a small silver snow line, inspired by the mountain Julian and I first summited together. Sadie stood in front of the mirror, smiling gently. The caption read, "Alara, I'm sorry. The staff said the measurements were a perfect fit and asked me to try it on for you." I looked at the photo and, for the first time, actually laughed out loud. Leo heard me and poked his head out of the kitchen. "What are you laughing at?" I showed him the photo. His face instantly darkened. "She has a death wish." I saved the photo. "She doesn't have a death wish," I said, opening my laptop and adding the image to the last slide of my banquet evidence presentation. "She's handing me a knife." The Crofts' pre-wedding banquet was held in the city's most expensive ballroom. Outside, a large photo of Julian and me was on display. It was taken last year. He was hugging me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, his smile gentle and open. Guests paused to look. "They look so perfect together," someone said. "I heard there was an incident during the Avalanche a few days ago. I thought the banquet would be canceled. The fact that the Crofts didn't cancel means it's not a big deal. Just a lover's quarrel. Hasn't Julian been good enough to Alara?" He was at the hospital every day after the Avalanche. I sat in a car across from the ballroom, listening to Leo relay information from inside. He wore a Bluetooth earpiece, his voice cold as ice. "They really know how to put on a show. Mrs. Croft is at the door telling guests you're not feeling well but are trying your best for the wedding." Julian is standing beside her, playing the part of the devoted fiancé. I looked at the dissolution of engagement notice in my hand. "Where's Sadie?" "In the back," Leo sneered. "Wearing a white dress. You'd think she was the bride." I nodded. "It's about time." Inside the ballroom, Julian was on stage, giving a speech. The big screen showed photos of us. "There have been some unexpected events these past few days," he said. "Alara is still recovering. She's always been a strong person, and we ask that you give us some space." The audience applauded. Mrs. Croft dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Mr. Croft looked composed. Everything was perfectly orchestrated. Then, the main doors opened. Silas walked in with 2 assistants. Dressed in a black suit and carrying a file folder, he walked directly to the front of the stage. Julian's speech stopped. Guests turned to look. Mrs. Croft's face changed. "Silas, what are you doing here?" Silas smiled. "On behalf of Miss Alara Vance, I am here to serve notice of the dissolution of the engagement, as well as the relevant legal documents concerning the recent incident." The entire hall erupted in murmurs. Julian came down from the stage, his face grim. "Where's Alara?" "Miss Vance is not yet recovered and is not well enough to attend an event designed to put public pressure on her," Silas said. Mrs. Croft's voice grew shrill. "What do you mean, public pressure? This is a pre-wedding banquet." "All the more reason to inform everyone here," Silas said, turning to the guests. "The engagement between Miss Alara Vance and Mr. Julian Croft is officially terminated as of today. The wedding is cancelled. All related costs will be settled by the responsible party according to the law." The room exploded. Mr. Croft slammed the table and stood up. "This is absurd!" Julian grabbed the documents. "Is this what she wants?" Silas looked at him. "I want to see her." "She refuses," Silas replied. Julian's eyes turned red. "What does she want from me?" Silas didn't answer. He simply signaled his assistant to connect to the large screen. Mr. Croft immediately yelled, "Turn that off! Who gave you permission to use the Croft screen?" The banquet manager approached. "Mr. Croft, sir, the rental and technical service fees for this screen were paid for by Miss Vance's account." Mr. Croft's face froze. The big screen flickered. The romantic photos of us disappeared, replaced by a clear, stark timeline. 14, 26, Avalanche, 14, 38. Sadie Miller evacuated. 14:47. Julian Croft reports Alara Vance may have gone down the main trail. 15:46. Julian Croft and Sadie Miller check into the Obsidian Lodge. 15:58. Alara Vance initiates self-rescue via emergency phone at abandoned gondola station #3. The hall fell silent. Someone whispered, "Self-rescue? I thought Julian was rescuing her the whole time. He was already at the hotel by then?" Mrs. Croft's face was chalk white. "This isn't true," Silas said coolly. "All records are from the Blackwood Peak rescue log and the sealed materials from the Obsidian Lodge." Julian stared at the screen, transfixed. The screen then cut to a screenshot from the hotel surveillance. In front of the fireplace, Sadie, wrapped in my silver thermal blanket, while Julian knelt to dry her hair. The timestamp was glaring. A collective gasp went through the audience. Mrs. Croft nearly fainted. Sadie rushed out from backstage, her face as white as a sheet. That's not what happened. Alara, you've misunderstood. I was just really cold. Silas clicked to the next slide. Thermal blanket. ID number. YS017. Owner. Alara Vance. Use. Personal emergency equipment. Sadie's voice died in her throat. Julian lunged forward to shut off the screen but was blocked by technicians Leo had brought. Leo finally emerged from a side door, his voice not loud but clear enough for everyone. Mr. Croft, don't be hasty. The best part is yet to come. The screen switched to the sports camera footage. The howling wind. My voice shouting, back to the main trail. Sadie's shriek, Julian, my legs are weak. And then her voice, recovered and chillingly clear, she's in the way. The ballroom was terrifyingly quiet. Then came Julian's voice. Get back! The screen tumbled violently. Someone gasped. And then, the rescuer's question. What about Miss Vance? Julian's reply. She knows the way. She'll get herself out. The video ended. No one spoke. The music had been cut. Julian stood below the stage, his face as white as if he had been buried in snow. Sadie shook her head, muttering, No, that's not what I meant. Leo sneered. Then what did you mean? She was in the way of what? You becoming Mrs. Croft? Whispers erupted among the guests. This is horrible. An avalanche. How could he say she'd get herself out? And he was acting so devoted just now. I thought Sadie was his first love. Turns out she's just a homewrecker. Mrs. Croft suddenly rushed at Silas. Turn it off. Turn it off now. Silas stepped back. Mrs. Croft, please control yourself. All materials have been submitted to the incident investigation team. Mr. Croft's face was ashen. He hissed at Julian. What else have you been hiding? Julian didn't answer. He just pulled out his phone and frantically dialed my number. I sat in the car, watching the screen light up and go dark, over and over. I didn't answer. On stage, Sadie suddenly shrieked. Julian, say something. Tell them I didn't mean it. Julian looked up at her. His gaze was complex shock, resentment, and a dawning horror of being dragged down with her. Sadie, stung by his look, completely panicked. She grabbed his arm. You can't look at me like that. You're the one who chose to save me. You said she was strong, that she'd be fine. With those words, Julian's face crumpled. The hall was now utterly silent. Silas immediately signaled his assistant to record the exchange. Julian shook her off. Shut up! Sadie cried even harder. Why should I shut up? You were supposed to save me first. I waited for you for so many years. What right did she have to come back and stand by your side? You told me I was the one you could never let go of. Mrs. Croft clutched her chest. Mr. Croft closed his eyes. The guests' expressions had shifted from curiosity to contempt. A meticulously planned banquet of devotion had turned into a public execution. Julian finally bolted from the ballroom. He stood at the hotel entrance, frantically searching for my car. I lowered the window an inch. He saw me and ran over. The post-snow wind was cold. He stood outside the car, his eyes red. Alara, get out. Let's talk. I looked at him. There's nothing to talk about. I know I was wrong, I really do. You don't know you were wrong, I said. You know you can't hide it anymore. His breath hitched. Did you have to destroy me in front of everyone? My voice was calm. Julian, during the avalanche, you abandoned me in front of everyone too. He looked as if he'd been slapped, the color draining from his face. I raised the window. As the car pulled away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, standing frozen. Sadie ran out, trying to grab his arm. He didn't let her touch him. He had finally stopped protecting her. But it was too late. The official incident hearing was held 3 days later at the Blackwood Peak Management Center. Representatives from the rescue team, the foundation, Apex Ascent, the hotel, and all involved parties were present. When I arrived, Julian was already there. He was wearing a dark gray suit and had lost a noticeable amount of weight. He stood up when I walked in. Alara. I didn't look at him, sitting down next to Silas. Sadie sat on the other side, her eyes swollen, accompanied by her lawyer. She had been torn apart online. The fragile first love image had shattered, and netizens had dug up her past. A photo from the day she returned to the country, in the passenger seat of Julian's car, captioned, "Some places, no matter the detours, always belong to me." The photo of her in my wedding dress had also gone viral. A comment she had once liked, "The one who gets the ring is the real winner." Every post was another piece of evidence she had handed the world herself. The hearing began with the resort manager outlining the incident. The closed training course was restricted to authorized project personnel. Miss Sadie Miller was not on the authorized list. Sadie whispered. I was invited to shoot at the last minute. All eyes turned to Julian. His Adam's apple bobbed. I invited her. The stenographer typed, First infraction. Unauthorized access for non-registered personnel. Mark, the lead rescuer, spoke next, placing the log on the table. His voice was steady. After the avalanche, we immediately began evacuation and head count. At 14:47, I asked Mr. Julian Croft about Miss Alara Vance's location. Mr. Croft stated she had likely gone down the main trail. At 15:23, we inquired again. Mr. Croft suggested she might have gone to the Foundation's temporary office. It wasn't until 15:58, when Miss Vance initiated a self-rescue call from the abandoned gondola station, that we confirmed she was still on the mountain. Julian clenched his fists. Julian's lawyer quickly spoke up. The scene was chaotic. Mr. Croft did not intentionally delay the report. He made a judgment based on Miss Vance's capabilities. Silas looked up. Strong capabilities do not equate to being abandoned from a search and rescue operation. The lawyer was speechless. I said nothing. I just looked at Julian. He avoided my gaze. Next, they played the sports camera footage. Even though it wasn't the first time seeing it, when Sadie's voice saying, "She's in the way," echoed through the room, she still flinched. Julian closed his eyes. When the video got to his line, "She knows the way, she'll get herself out," I heard a soft gasp from someone nearby. In the face of such evidence, any eloquent explanation was meaningless. Julian's lawyer tried to argue he was in a state of shock, but Silas produced the hotel records. While in this state of shock, Mr. Croft still managed to complete Miss Miller's transport, hotel check-in, arrange for fireplace service, a hot spring, and a medical concierge within an hour and 20 minutes. Yet he did not make a single phone call to confirm Miss Vance's safety. Silas paused. This wasn't chaos. This was a choice. Julian finally looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. I met his gaze calmly. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. During a recess, he followed me into the hallway. Alara. I stopped. He stood a few feet away, as if afraid to get closer. I admit it. I was scared. I didn't speak. His voice grew hoarse. When the snow came down, Sadie was grabbing onto me, and my mind went blank. I knew you were calmer, more familiar with the routes. I thought you could get out. So you pushed me? I asked. His face went white. I didn't want you to die. But you accepted that I might. The words froze him. After a long moment, he said quietly, I was afraid to look back. I looked at him. Why? His eyes reddened. Because I was afraid if I turned back, I wouldn't be able to save anyone. No, I said. You were afraid that if you turned back, you'd have to face another choice. He didn't deny it. I said it for him. You had already saved Sadie. If you turned back for me, she would feel you didn't put her first. You didn't want to disappoint her, and you didn't want to admit you still had feelings for her. So you told yourself I could get out on my own. Julian's throat tightened. Alara, Julian, the cruelest part wasn't that you saved her first, I said, looking at him. It's that you knew you chose her, but you still wanted me to be your fiancé, to keep giving you money, reputation, and respectability. His tears finally fell. It was the first time I had ever seen Julian Croft cry. If this were a year ago, I might have felt a pang of sympathy. I might have thought, he's so proud, he must be truly sorry to be crying like this. But now, I just felt like I was looking at a stranger. Can we really not go back? He asked. The moment you turned off our shared location, there was no going back, I said. After the recess, the hearing continued. This time, Julian didn't let his lawyer deny anything for him. When the recorder asked if he was aware that Alara Vance had not safely reached her destination after the incident, he was silent for a long time, then said, yes. The entire room was still. His lawyer's face changed. Mr. Croft. Julian didn't look at him. The recorder continued. Did you proactively inform the rescue team that Alara Vance might still be in a dangerous area? Julian closed his eyes. No. Sadie shot a look at him. He continued. I judged that she was capable of self-rescue. I didn't want to cause Sadie any more distress. With that, even his own lawyer fell silent. I looked down at my hands. The frostbite hadn't completely healed. A faint purple still marked my knuckles. A single true sentence doesn't bring relief. It only cements the harm that has already been done. After the hearing, the preliminary findings were released quickly. Julian Croft, as the project's executive lead, was found to have violated regulations by bringing an unauthorized person into a restricted area and was guilty of gross negligence for failing to accurately and timely report a missing person. Sadie Miller was held responsible for trespassing in a dangerous area and misappropriating another person's emergency equipment. The Apex Ascent brand had its partnership with the Blackwood Peak project suspended. The Vance Foundation reserved the right to pursue financial recovery and further legal action. When the document was released, Julian was standing by a window, looking completely drained. Sadie rushed over to him. "Why did you admit it? What are we going to do now?" Julian looked at her. "Sadie," he said, his voice low, "from the very beginning. Did you ever think about what would happen to Alara?" Sadie's face went white. "Now you're blaming me?" Julian didn't answer. He suddenly laughed, tears streaming down his face. Sadie sneered. "Julian, stop acting so noble. You were the one who pushed her. You were the one who turned off the location. You were the one who said she'd get out on her own. You only regret it now because she doesn't want you anymore, not because your conscience suddenly kicked in." The words hit Julian like a physical blow. He didn't argue. I turned and walked away. As I reached the door, Silas got a message. He glanced at it, his expression changing. "Alara." They recovered the data from Sadie's spare SIM card. I stopped. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a chat log from the night before the avalanche. Sadie to Julian. "Tomorrow, if I look really scared in front of the camera, will you hold me first, like you used to?" Julian did not reply. Sadie sent another. "I just want to know if, in your heart, I'm still more important than her." The contents of Sadie Miller's spare SIM card were more complete than I could have imagined. She was cautious. Her main phone was clean, but this spare card held everything. Chats with her friends. I don't believe Julian really loves Alara Vance. She's just convenient for marriage. Men, they need a woman who can help them when they're down. But once they're successful, they always think back to their first love. Alara is too composed. It's annoying. If I can just make her lose control once, the Crofts will see she's not fit to marry into their family. The Blackwood Peak shoot is my chance. The mountains are dangerous. Old flames are the easiest way to make a man act on instinct. Seeing this, Leo's hands were shaking with anger. She did it on purpose. Silas's expression was grim. At the very least, this proves she had intent to create a conflict. Further down were chats between Sadie and a wedding planner. She asked if a bridesmaid could try on the wedding dress if the bride was unwell. The planner replied that it was possible, but only with the bride's consent. Sadie wrote back, "She won't know." There were also chats with Julian's assistant. "Can we use more of the photos I took in the launch materials? Will Miss Vance mind?" The reply, "Julian will handle it." Each message was a piece of a puzzle, revealing the true ambition behind her fragile facade. She hadn't innocently stumbled into our lives. She had been testing the boundaries, step by step. And Julian, time and again, had allowed it, indulged it, and covered for her. He hadn't been deceived. He had enjoyed it. He enjoyed the drama of two women fighting for him, the constant validation of his own importance. The day Sadie was formally questioned by the police, I was there. She sat in the waiting area, without makeup, looking haggard. When she saw me, she stood up. "Alara, are you satisfied now?" I looked at her. "No." Her eyes reddened. "You've already ruined me. My career is gone. Everyone online is attacking me. And Julian won't even speak to me. What more do you want?" "I want you to take responsibility for what you did," I said. She laughed shrilly. "Responsibility? What did I do? Did I cause the avalanche? Did I push you? Did I turn off the location? You're too afraid to hate Julian, so you're taking it all out on me." I looked at her. "You're wrong. I hate him too, and I'm holding him accountable as well." She froze. "You're both the same." Her face paled. Perhaps she had always believed that if I hated Julian first, she could still position herself as an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. But I wasn't going to give her that chance. During the questioning, the officers went through the chat logs. At first, Sadie denied everything, claiming it was all a joke, that she had no ill intent, that she never expected an avalanche. But when they asked her why she was wearing my thermal blanket after the incident, and failed to disclose its origin, and why she had tried to hide the blanket in a cleaning cart before the hotel room was sealed, she panicked. I was just afraid Alara would misunderstand, that I was trying to take her things. And were you aware that this blanket was a key piece of evidence related to the incident? She couldn't answer. Meanwhile, Julian underwent further investigation. He admitted to delaying the report but insisted it wasn't intentional harm. Silas told me that proving intent would be difficult legally, but gross negligence and civil liability were almost certain. Apex Ascent would also face lawsuits from partners, recovery of misused charity funds, and a review of its nonprofit status. I listened and simply said, "Proceed as planned." Silas looked at me. "No second thoughts?" "Do I look like I'm having any?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "No." "Good." Julian cornered me at the hospital entrance. I was there for a follow-up on my frostbite. As I walked out, I saw him standing at the bottom of the steps. The snow had long since melted, but he was wearing a thin coat, his lips pale from the cold. He walked over as soon as he saw me. "Alara." I stopped. "What do you want to say now?" His eyes were filled with exhaustion. "I've cut ties with Sadie." "Congratulations," I said. He gave a bitter smile. "Do you have to be like this?" "Like what? Should I set off fireworks for you?" He looked down. "I know it's too late for anything I say now. But these past few days I keep thinking, if I had turned back that day." I cut him off. "There are no ifs." His voice trembled. "I had a nightmare that you were in the snow, calling my name." I looked at him. "I didn't." He froze. "When the snow buried me, I didn't call for you, because I knew it would be useless." I didn't say the last part out loud, but Julian seemed to understand. His eyes reddened instantly. "Alara, I was truly wrong." He suddenly dropped to his knees. People were coming and going from the hospital, many stopping to stare. The once proud Julian Croft was kneeling before me, his voice raspy. "Give me one more chance. The wedding can be canceled, the projects can be suspended. I don't want anything anymore, just don't leave me." People started taking out their phones to film. Leo stepped protectively beside me, whispering, "Should we go?" It wasn't that he couldn't kneel. It was that before, the pain wasn't his, so he didn't have to. "Julian," I said, "do you know what I was thinking in that abandoned station before I made that call?" He looked up at me. "I thought that if I died, you would probably cry beautifully at my funeral. Everyone would talk about your deep love, how you just didn't have time to save me. Sadie would cry too, saying she owed me for the rest of her life." His face went white. "And then you would both move on. My foundation, my resources, the path I paved for you, they would all just become the backdrop for your self-pitying love story." His lips trembled. "No." "So," I said, looking at him, "I didn't survive to hear you say you're sorry. I survived to take back what is mine, and to deliver the responsibility that is yours." He knelt there, as if all the strength had been drained from him. I walked past him. He suddenly grabbed the hem of my coat. "Alara, don't go." I looked down at his hand. "Let go." He didn't. I slowly took out my phone and dialed Silas's number. "Silas, Julian is harassing me at the hospital entrance. What materials do I need for a restraining order?" Julian flinched as if struck and immediately let go. I put my phone away. "Next time, I'll call the police directly." He looked at me, his eyes shattered. "You really don't love me at all anymore?" I thought for a moment. "I did," I said. His tears fell. I finished the sentence. "But you pushed that love away with your own two hands." The legal dissolution of our engagement went smoothly. Julian didn't show up. His family's lawyer came instead. He tried to negotiate. The wedding could be canceled, but they hoped I would issue a statement about an amicable split. The accident investigation could continue, but they hoped Sadie's name wouldn't be mentioned further. The foundation could seek financial recovery, but they hoped to keep the possibility of future collaboration with Apex Ascent open. I listened, then asked, "Does the Croft family really think they're in a position to be making demands?" The lawyer looked embarrassed. Silas pushed 3 documents across the table. First, the dissolution of engagement. There will be no mention of an amicable split. Second, the accident liability will proceed according to the investigation's findings, with no private redaction of responsible parties. Third, the Vance Foundation and Apex Ascent will have no collaborative relationship for the next 3 years. All outstanding problematic funds are to be returned within a set deadline. The lawyer frowned. "That's too absolute." "There are no half measures in an avalanche," I said. He didn't understand. Silas did. He smiled faintly. When I signed my name, my fingers were still a bit stiff. The pen nib touched the paper, and I wrote Alara Vance without hesitation. When I walked out of the notary's office, the sun was bright. Leah was waiting at the door with a hot cup of tea. Congratulations on being single again. I took it. Thanks. He looked at my face and seemed to relax. I was worried you'd be sad. I am, I said. But not regretful. A person isn't a machine. 5 years of a relationship don't just vanish with a piece of evidence, a hearing, or a signature. I still occasionally remembered the past. Julian bringing me medicine in the rain, staying up all night with me to revise a proposal, holding me after my mother's funeral and saying, Alara, from now on, I'm your family. Those moments were real too. It was just that later, he personally turned them into lies. That afternoon, Julian's mother came to the foundation. She looked much more worn than the last time I saw her, with more gray in her hair. My secretary said she had been waiting downstairs for half an hour and seemed agitated. I had her brought up. The moment she walked in, her eyes were red. Alara, I know I've done things wrong in the past. I didn't respond. She sat across from me, clutching her purse. Julian has locked himself in his room these past few days. He won't eat or drink. Apex Ascent is being sued by partners. His father's blood pressure is up. Our family is a mess. I asked calmly, and? Her tears fell. Can you please just let this go? You and Julian were together for 5 years. I truly saw you as my daughter-in-law. I looked at her. Mrs. Croft, did you see me as your daughter-in-law or as a resource for the Croft family? Her face went white. Alara, how can you say that? I opened my desk drawer and took out a few old invoices. When Mr. Croft had his surgery, I contacted the specialists and paid the deposit. When you were hospitalized for anxiety, I arranged for your recovery retreat. When Julian's company was on the verge of bankruptcy, I connected him with the foundation's projects. When your relatives wanted to get into the supply chain, I was the one who stopped the non-compliant process from becoming a scandal. I pushed them across the desk, one by one. I've done a lot over the years, but after the Avalanche, the first call you made to me was to tell me to see the bigger picture. Her lips trembled. I was just panicked. You weren't panicked, I said. You were accustomed to it. Accustomed to me being sensible, to me cleaning up messes, to me being hurt and still considering the Croft family's reputation first. Mrs. Croft buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Alara, I'm begging you. I looked at her, not with satisfaction, but with a deep weariness. You're begging the wrong person. She looked up. I wasn't the one who brought Sadie to a restricted area. I wasn't the one who delayed the rescue report. I wasn't the one who misappropriated charity funds. And I wasn't the one who had your family release false statements. She was speechless. I pressed the intercom and asked my secretary to show her out. At the door, Mrs. Croft turned back. Have you no regard for our history at all? I looked down at my files. I did. That's why I gave Julian 5 years. That's why I tolerated it the first time he sided with Sadie. That's why I didn't burn everything down when the Croft family repeatedly used me as a tool. But history can't be traded for a life. That evening, the official investigation results were published. The Apex Ascent brand was suspended from all Blackwood Peak projects and ordered to cooperate with a special audit of charity funds. Julian Croft, as the project lead, was found to have committed major negligence through unauthorized access and severely inaccurate incident reporting. Sadie Miller was held liable for trespassing in a dangerous area and misappropriating emergency equipment, with civil damages to be determined separately. When the news broke, Apex Ascent's board held an emergency late-night meeting. Julian was suspended from his management position. The brand he had built with his own hands had, for the first time, shut him out of the boardroom. Late that night, he sent me a long text message. Alara, I only realized today how much of Apex Ascent was held up by you. I always thought I was the one charging ahead, and you were just supporting me from behind, as you should. Now that everyone is asking me what to do, I realize I don't even know how to navigate most of these paths. I'm not asking you to come back and help me. I just want to say I'm sorry. On the mountain that day, I made the worst choice of my life. If I could do it over, I would have turned back. I swear I would have. I read it and deleted it without replying. The next day, I had the locks on my apartment changed. The apartment was left to me by my mother. Julian used to have a key. He always said it felt more like home than his own place. After Sadie returned, he had brought her here once, claiming he just needed to pick up a file. That day, she had stood by my mother's piano and smiled, asking, Alara, can I play this? I had said yes. Looking back now, that's how boundaries are seated, one small bit at a time. After the locksmith finished, he asked if I wanted to keep the old keys. I looked at the set of keys. No, thanks. He put the old lock cylinder and keys into a bag. I threw it in the trash. It made a soft sound, but I knew that some doors were now closed for good. The day Blackwood Peak reopened, I went back. Not for Julian, but for the Foundation's new rescue project. The resort had been overhauled. 3 new emergency phone stations were added, the location tracking system was updated, and all restricted trail entrances now had dual verification gates. As Mark and I inspected the equipment, he said, "This new tracker is great. The signal is much stronger than the old one." I nodded. Never again should something like this be delayed because funds were reallocated. He looked at me for a moment. It won't be. The wind blew across the snow line, kicking up fine white powder. I stood in front of the abandoned gondola station #3. The broken wooden door had been repaired, and the red emergency box was replaced with a new one, a prominent rescue symbol on its glass. I reached out and touched it. My fingertips still had a slight numbness from the frostbite, but it no longer hurt. Leo was taking photos of me. "Alara, look over here." I turned and he pressed the shutter. In the photo, I'm standing in the snow in a black jacket, the bright sky behind me. There's no Julian, no one standing by my side. But I look fine. 2 months after the incident, all the outcomes were settled. Apex Ascent repaid the misappropriated funds and paid a penalty to the Foundation for breach of contract. Julian was marginalized by the board, his personal credit and industry reputation in ruins. To save the brand, the Croft family had to bring in a new management team. Sadie was dropped by multiple partners and faced additional lawsuits for damages related to the incident and her fabricated press releases. She sent me an email once. No apology, just the words, "You won." I didn't reply. Because even at the end, she didn't understand. I didn't win against her. I won myself back. The last time I saw Julian was at the premiere of the Foundation's new documentary. It was called Above the Snow Line, and it wasn't about my accident, but about the real challenges of mountain rescue, the golden hour, equipment standards, and liability. After the screening, I saw him backstage. He had lost more weight, dressed in a simple black coat, holding a bouquet of white daisies. My mother had loved daisies. He still remembered. But remembering no longer meant anything. Alara. He walked over, stopping a few feet away. This time, he didn't get too close. The documentary was excellent. "Thank you," I said. He looked down at the flowers. "I went to see your mother." I frowned slightly. "I just left some flowers," he said. "I didn't disturb her." I didn't speak. He gave a bitter smile. "I know it's too late for anything I do now." "It's good that you know," I said calmly. His eyes reddened, but this time he didn't beg. "I came to give this back to you." He held out a small box. I opened it. Inside was the engagement ring, and beside it, an old pin. The very first commemorative pin from Apex Ascent. "This should have been yours a long time ago," he said. I looked at the pin. I had waited for it once. When it didn't come, I stopped waiting. I pushed the box with the ring, and the pin back toward him. "You can dispose of the ring. I don't need the pin either." His voice was hoarse. "Not even as a memento?" I looked at him. "Julian, the day of the avalanche, when I tore that ring off my finger, that was my memento. My finger still has a faint scar. Not from the ring itself, but from the act of ripping it off." He looked at my hand, his eyes growing redder. "I'm sorry." This time, he said it clearly. No asking for forgiveness. No pleading for a second chance. I nodded. "I accept your apology." He looked up sharply, a flicker of hope in his eyes. I continued, "But that doesn't mean I forgive you, and it doesn't mean we have a future." The light went out. He slowly nodded. "I know." As he turned to leave, his shoulders seemed heavier than before. I didn't watch for long. Leo came over with 2 cups of coffee. "Feeling soft?" I took a coffee. "Not sad?" I thought for a moment. "A little." Leo put his arm through mine. "That's normal. It wasn't 5 days. It was 5 years." I smiled. "Yes, but it was only 5 years. Life is more than 5 years. I still have a long way to go." After the premiere, Above the Snow Line was released online. Many comments said, "I never knew Avalanche Rescue wasn't some heroic story, that there was so much cold, hard time, equipment, and responsibility behind it." Someone else said, Alara Vance is ruthless. She personally sent her own fiancé to be investigated. I paused when I read that comment, then replied, I'm not ruthless. I just survived. That reply was later pushed to the top. Many people left me messages. Some said they too had been abandoned by a loved one in a moment of danger. Some said they finally understood not to let being calm and sensible become a reason for others to hurt them. Some just said that surviving is an incredible feat in itself. Reading those comments, I felt for the first time that the avalanche wasn't just my wound. It could also be a warning. A warning to more people that love isn't a slogan, shouted in a life-or-death crisis. Love is, when danger comes, not being the one who gets pushed away. 6 months later, I was on the mountain again for a shoot. This time, there was no wedding dress, no Julian, no Sadie, just the rescue team, the film crew, and a new safety route. Before we set off, Mark handed me a new location tracker. Latest model, very strong signal. I took it and fastened it to my wrist. The blue light blinked, steady and clear. I looked down at it, then took off my old tracker. The old one had a scratch on the edge, a mark from the day of the avalanche. I didn't throw it away. I placed it in the foundation's display case. Next to it, a small plaque reads, Never entrust your life to someone who will turn off your location. As the shoot wrapped up, the sun set behind the mountain, painting the entire snow line in gold. I stood in the wind and suddenly remembered the moment I made that call from the abandoned gondola station. I was shivering, my voice was hoarse. I was a mess. But that was the call that pulled me out of Julian's story. Julian thought I would call him, crying. That I would beg him to come get me, that I would wait for his explanation. But I didn't. I called my lawyer. I called the rescue system. I called the Alara Vance who still wanted to live, who still wanted to win herself back. After the snow stopped, I didn't look back. I just kept walking forward.